So let's go to that night or the day that you had your near death experience. Tell me what happened to that, the day leading up to that, or the night leading up to that.
Yeah, okay. So, okay. Um, right. So I had two children. Oh, I still got two children, what am I saying? They're adults. They're adults now. They're like 27, 29. It's like
Mm,
they're, they're your children forever, but it's now they tell
sure.
me what to do. So it's a bit different. But at
Mhm.
the time they were 7 and 5. And it's just like, it's like all of us, when we're rushing the 9 to 5 job, you've got to pay bills and things are going on in your relationship, you're unhappy, and there's so much going on, and you just feel torn and pulled in different directions. And I remember that morning that I was rushing to get the children ready for school, and I had to go to work because obviously I had to make ends meet and pay the bills and everything. And it's like all of us, you then get caught up in the detail of like you think that time's always promised. You always think that you're always guaranteed the next breath. Yeah. And you just think you'll put things off, or you think you do things later. And if I'd known that was that day, when the day before, that I would never or wouldn't be able to put my son to bed or my daughter to bed for about 4 years because I couldn't walk, then I would have done things differently. So the night before the accident, he's got a bunk bed, my son, and my daughter had her bedroom, and I go up and I read them a story. And I think even the night before, I was upset about my job, and I don't think I was fully present in the moment when I was reading them those stories, which pains me even today. That experience, that emotion, I still hold. And then the day that it happened, I was rushing them, getting them into the car, and I got them to school. So they're 5 and 7 years old. And I remember I did kiss them on the forehead, but I was in a rush. So I didn't fully embody that. I wasn't in that emotion. I was rushing. So, my lips were just kissing their forehead. Bye bye, gotta go, see you later. And that was it, and diving off. So I wasn't fully in that emotion. I wasn't that eye contact with them. I didn't hold them or anything. And that really pains me today. And I remember I was rushing. I got on the train and they were at school. And we always think, as I say, it's a given. And I worked on a project in London where it was for the elderly befriending scheme. And my job, I built the project, the charity, and about getting volunteers for to go out to the elderly to read their newspapers for them or whatever. So I loved the work that I was doing back then. I coordinated it, and I would go out to visit elderly. And I remember on that day that I had to write a letter to social services about a particular client. I was really worried about her, that no one was visiting her, as like pockets of society, some areas that used to be run down, they become sort of gentrified, and then the extended family has to move out because they can't afford to live in that area anymore. And this is what's happening in this part of London. And I remember that day very clearly. I think it was around 2ish, and I thought, okay, I have to get this not email, but it had a letter in an envelope. And I remember that I was thinking, okay, I got to leave now, I'm in a rush, I've got to post this letter, and I've got to pick the kids up, like we do, we always rush ahead in our thoughts. And I remember when I left the community centre, there was a 1 o'clock club, and all the elderly was like, bye Anne, and see you tomorrow, blah blah blah. And like, yeah, bye. And I walked out the office, and I was walking down the road, and my head was like, okay, now 100 miles per hour. I was thinking, okay, do I just go get the train, or do I cross the road? Do I post the letter? Do I go get a newspaper to read on the train? What's the time? My head was everywhere,
I'm exhausted just listening. I could only imagine how you felt. Continue.
It's a working mum, what can I say? Or working parent, men do this
Yeah.
too.
Oh, I know. I
Yeah,
know.
right. Okay, cool. So there you are. And then, you're thinking about washing up, and you're thinking about you for dinner, and what it's like, you
Sure.
get caught up. And I wasn't being in the present moment. I remember I got to the zebra crossing, the pedestrian crossing in the UK, in London, busy central. It was the Essex Road in Islington. It's a part of London. I remember getting there, and I thought, okay, someone had pressed the button. And I thought, well, if they press the button to say, okay, then it's going to go green, man, and you can cross it, I'll do this now. It's made my mind up, I'm going to do this. So I was like, okay, walking across, there was a middle island. And I remember that there were some people by the side of me, behind me. I think it was about 5 of us in total. And then I hadn't been practicing meditation at that time. I hadn't really been connecting to my guides. I'd been hearing information, didn't even realize we had guides, but I just thought somebody was always there to look after me, like my nan who died when I was younger. And at the time when I was standing on this crossing in the middle of the road, I heard my nan's voice. Now, she looked after me till I was 15 because I was taken out of my home environment. She looked after me because there's difficult times at home. So I was 37 or something like that at the time. And I heard her voice and everything's going to be okay. And I was like, what? What's going on, you know? And I remember thinking, look, I got to cross the road. Shall I post the letter or buy the newspaper? If I post the letter, means I walk straight across the road. If I buy the newspaper, I've got to go at an angle, whatever. So there was this going in my head and I still could hear her. And that was it. The human, that was it. I didn't hear or see anything. That was it. What happened was something happened. She said, buy the newspaper. Now, because she had said, go get the newspaper, I changed direction slightly. I was at an angle. So I was off to my right. And luckily, I had crossed the road at a right angle and didn't go straight across. Later, the police said if I'd gone straight across, my head would have gone through the windscreen of this van. And there was no coming back. I mean, it would have been severed off. I mean, knowing me, I would have put the head under my arm. I said, I'm ready. Let's get on with it. Get back to life.
Right.
But it didn't happen that way, right? So on the crossing, I crossed at the right angle and the van had hit me on my left-hand side. I didn't feel it at all. I didn't feel anything. When she said everything's going to be okay, go get the newspaper, that was it. And that must have been when the van had impacted me on my left-hand side. And I bounced, it threw me across the ground, I don't know, about 30 feet or whatever it was. And I bounced off the ground and then I fractured my pelvis. I had broken my knee, I'd torn the cartilage in my knee, I had 7 breaks in my foot. I'd ripped my ankle, the Achilles was damaged. I had operations on that. My kidneys were damaged, they were bleeding internally. My spleen was damaged, my kidneys were bleeding. My ribs on both sides were fractured, but I didn't hit my head. That was good. But I was out. I was just out. And I didn't know that had happened to me. I didn't know what had happened. And all I know is the next minute I was aware was that I was looking down at something, but I didn't know it was my body. I was looking down and I could see and feel everybody's emotions, all their energy. I could feel it all. And I could see that they were worried and panicking. And there was a lady that had owned a hairdresser's on the other side of the road, and she came running out and I could hear her saying, I've got a towel, I'm going to put it under her neck. And people go, no, don't touch her. And then I recognized there was a family member there, he'd come out of the post office and he'd seen me on the ground, and his face color had just changed from being pink and fleshy to white. And I remember him, or whitey gray, and he was just looking there in shock. And then he called my partner who was working up the road. Then I also remember I was sitting in this, because it's stopped all the traffic in the road, as you can imagine. The silly woman had got knocked down. How dare she? This is what I was hearing from this guy who was in his truck, big lorry. He was talking to his boss and he was running late. You know, he's talking about there was something on the radio, the Capital Radio, which was the radio station in London at the time. So they were going to, the whole road had been closed off. They were going to airlift this person who'd been a road traffic accident. I could hear sirens in the background. This guy was talking about me as I was in his cab of his lorry at one moment. Then I was hovering above this body and feeling their energy. At no point did I feel any pain at all. And then while all this was going on, I remember I felt that I felt this light around me, this white light, and I felt very warm because this was in March 2002, 11th of March, and it was quite cold in the UK then, but I felt warm and I had no pain. And for me, it felt as if I was in sort of like a circular library. And it's familiar because I do Akashic readings now, and I do my trance work, and I work with Galactic Council, and it's familiar to me of what I witnessed at that time, which I didn't know like 20 years later I was going to end up doing this work. And I remember being there, and I remember there were like long corridors or long passages where there was loads of books and scrolls. It was like okay, thank you, I just heard, sorry, they just came in. It was a bit like what felt safe for my brain to handle. So they showed me the books and stuff. And I remember the books as it's being opened, I remember I had a guide. I didn't know it was called a guide at the time, but the work I do now, my guide was standing by my side, and sort of as the book opened, it was like magical. There was like things coming out of it and showing me my life, my journey of my soul, scrolls being pulled out, and it was like this large blueprint of, like, not paper, but this, I don't know, something that pulled out that, like, I think they said it was like an architect of my life.
To watch the full video, click on the link below, and don't forget to subscribe.